Greetings, students of modern world history. This is an introduction to chapter 23.1, the Industrial Revolution. Started in Great Britain for several reasons that we'll get to. One is that people started moving away from the farms and into the cities. So they were looking for work in the cities. And there are some other factors that, like the steam engine, powered railroad and steamships. But one of your key terms for this chapter is industrial capitalism. And this plays into one of the answers in your lesson review questions. In fact, I've kind of designed the introduction today around answering many of the questions in the lesson review. So if you take notes on this, you pretty much got your lesson review done. Industrial capitalism, that's an economic system based on industrial production or manufacturing in which individuals own and control the means of productions. That would be the individuals that are the entrepreneurs that started the business. They get to own it. And rather than the state owning the factories, the individuals that built the factories own them. So there's a profit motive, and capitalism is based on property rights and rule of law. And so there's industrial capitalism. The Industrial Revolution, you see that below, right here. It says it started in Great Britain, as I talked about earlier. Migration from farms to cities and the development of rail and steamboat transport. Part of the accompanying impact of the people moving to the cities was the enclosure movement of the 1700s. Enclosure laws allowed landowners to fence off land that was formerly used by peasants for grazing their animals. This shows a British farming area in 1700. Shared areas are common pastures. And the map on the right shows the same area in 1800, with the common pastures eliminated by fences. And that's here. So that's the enclosure movement. People beginning to fence off the lands that were once used in common. Here's a little bit more on the enclosure movement of the 1700s. Here are some of the effects. Landowners fence in common lands. Peasants move to towns to find work. Factories benefit from the new labor supply that you find in the cities. And remaining farms become larger with increased crop yields. It says here, the fencing of meadows and fields, which kept peasants from using them for grazing and forced many to move to towns for work, was an effect of the enclosure laws. Cottage industries, that's another term in this chapter that you're going to become familiar with. It says what they are. It says cottage industries are small, home-based businesses that produce goods for sale. Before the Industrial Revolution, they were common in rural areas, where farmers augmented, means added to, their income by producing products on a part-time basis. Such industries still exist today. Back then, what they produced, mostly wool, cotton textiles, clothing, and craft goods, sometimes furniture. How are they produced? They use simple hand tools such as spinning wheels and wooden looms. And that should serve as an introduction to this chapter on the Industrial Revolution.